Hey, LCS Lit fam. Welcome back to part 2 of my series, What Makes a Good Story? And this is nonfiction.
Check this out.
So let's talk about nonfiction. Nonfiction is a little different from fiction because it's based on life. And there's also a lot of different subgenres of nonfiction, and each of them have their own kind of unwritten rules. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to talk specifically about memoir writing and prescriptive books, okay? Because both of them are similar but different. Okay, so if you're writing a memoir, I really want you to stop this video and go watch my video on fiction storytelling, just because a lot of what is being sold now in the memoir space is narrative nonfiction, and narrative nonfiction does read a lot like fiction. It should compel you. It should draw the reader in. There's a little more creative space there. So I want you to understand the elements of a good story because you're going to need that here. Okay, so now that you went back and watched my video on fiction and the elements of a good story, you recognize that you need a good plot, setting, character development, blah, blah. Okay, so if you're writing a narrative nonfiction memoir, then what you're going to do is almost be telling multiple small stories in the context of a big one. So the first thing you have to do is figure out, what is your overarching theme? Like, what is the purpose of your memoir? What is it that you want people to walk away understanding? Because we all have a story to tell, right? But what is your story? What is that hook, right? What is something that you've experienced that you think your audience would want to come and spend money to read about? And once you have figured out what your overarching theme is, this is how you are going to figure out what should be in your book. So based on this overarching theme, I want you to pick 10 to 15 pivotal moments in your life that you feel like feed into this point of your book, right? The overarching plot, the point of your book. And as you're telling those stories in each individual chapter, it should have a bit of a plot. We should get a sense of place with the setting. You are the main character, but who else were you dealing with, or who else is a part of your story in this particular chapter that you're talking about? And so each chapter should kind of tell its own story. So you're going to think of your memoir as 10 to 15 little stories that basically help to drive home whatever your overarching theme or whatever the point is that you want people to take away from your story. And if you're writing a prescriptive book, it's going to be a little different because you may not have as much creative space depending on the type of book you're writing. And so one example I'm going to give is a business book, right? Business book may not feel as narrative and might not have as much text, but it might be, here are the 15 things that I failed at in order to be successful at business. Or here are the 7 tools that I use to help become a millionaire, right? And then there are going to be some stories that are going to be in each of those chapters, but the point of the chapter is not necessarily the story, it is the lesson, right? So a lot of times these books might end with, and here are my 5 takeaways, or here's a journal, and here's what you should write in your journal to help get you to that point. So with prescriptive, you're still writing those stories, but you're wanting to focus more on the tools, the lesson, the takeaway, versus having someone kind of just use your story as a cautionary tale. So no matter what subgenre of narrative nonfiction or just prescriptive nonfiction that you're writing, remember, you're thinking of a bunch of smaller stories that's going to feed into this bigger theme. And that is how you're going to lay out your book. Of course, you might have an introduction or a foreword, an afterword kind of thing, references. That's what we call front and back matter in publishing terms. But the meat of the book is going to be these 10, 15, 20 stories, 8 tips, whatever these things are that is going to help drive home your overarching theme of whatever your nonfiction story is about. As always, thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope you found this video useful. If there's something else you'd like to see me talk about, please comment below or DM us, and I'm happy to tailor a video to your needs. Happy writing.